our session about product management in Office 365. Just a quick look at our sponsors for today that allow us to do all this wonderful SharePoint Saturday here in Vancouver. As part of the Vancouver, the SharePoint user group, we'd like to also invite you to all of our next meetings. We're usually every first Thursday of the month meeting, so look for us, look up, and meet more of our sponsors. A few seconds about myself. I'm Yana. I'm from Israel and Russia. And right now I work in very nice organizations called BC Housing. And before that, and I worked 11 years with SharePoint, so SharePoint everything, not specifically everything. It's like SharePoint, I probably did something about it. And you can find my Twitter account, which is usually active, and my website right here. Now, what are we going to talk about today? We've heard about Power Apps, we've heard about Flow, we've heard about PowerBI, we've heard about many things today. This session is not going to be about how to configure every single thing, but more about how to use those things and the art of the possible regarding product management. Being a product manager myself, what I found is that there are many applications and many ways to do product management. And why not to use SharePoint for that great task as well? Any business analysts or product managers in the crowd? Yeah, and nobody? Everybody's developer? End users? End user, okay. Any BAs? So this is for more for business analysts that I talked about that in the previous session to see how make things work. So we will go through what is product management, the product itself, the stakeholders, it's business analysis mostly, and how to measure and verify everything. The picture is, of course, English Bay, Vancouver, because this is where I live and the most beautiful place in the world. Right? You're here, so you probably agree. So this specific topic began as an idea following a meetup. Another meetup, not Vancouver, a different one, back in November with a wonderful group called Agile Vancouver. It was a great meetup, and it was because we not just met and somebody explained us something, but there was a group of 3 BAs, business analysts and product managers from one of the companies, which I'm not going to name, and they just said, we have a problem with a client managing a product. How you guys that are sitting here as product managers and BAs going to help us deal with it? And I thought, why not to use SharePoint? Why not to change the stage, change the ground that they're presenting? So let's begin from the start. What is a product management versus a project management? So we have a product. This is a big golden box. A product has always solved some kind of a problem. It's conceived, developed, introduced, managed, and retired. We are going to focus more about the first stages rather than the last stages, because in software organizations it gets much more noticeable and sometimes it's a problem. Versus a project. Everybody knows this screen, right? What does this screen mean? And a project, Gantt charts, and project has clear scope, clear timing, and it might contain managing one of the products in it. Now, the methodology behind product management, just like the PMP organization for project managers, there is another organization called PLM, which is on the hidden slide later on, and the PLM manages the product versus the project. There's also an organization called 280, and they have all this for process for product management. But I'm more of a simple person. Let's say that those are the important things. It goes from the idea, the ideation process, the scope for the product, planning what is it going to be done, manage all the different stages, and of course measure and have the feedback loop regarding what was done and was it good enough or wasn't it good enough, and what was the impact of what we have been improving. Just like in any other product program. This is a general process for product. So back to the company, because we had a whole 2 minutes of methodology, so let's get to something practical. Company is DevOps, let's call it this way. Customer is retail company. Retail company does exactly like Charles did before. It has a catalog and it sells many products. Simple enough. Product itself is the protocol and catalog improvement. We need to improve this catalog. This is the product, this is what we need to manage. And the pain, well, scope creep, timing, communication, any VAs in the crowd, or PMs in the crowd will say, yes, that's a problem. Now, where are we as the product manager? We are basically here, between the technical, the business, the design, and the needs of all of those guys. So what is the problem? It seems to be pretty straightforward. We have a product catalog. We can build an ugly or a pretty app to manage this product catalog. We can improve some fields, add some designs, and there we go. No problem with the plan. So somebody wants to guess what is the problem? Judging by this slide. All right, no corporate crowd. The thing here is that you see those are all product catalogs. We might encounter the problem that we need different displays for different devices. We might encounter the problem that we actually, the dresses here, they're really different from the dishes right here. The display here, you can sort them by color. There you can sort them probably by size or probably by some kind of cut. So all those definitions and all those things result in a very big mess with the communication between the client and the people who are actually going to rebuild this product catalog. And this is where SharePoint might help us. Instead of the current communication, which is email, even shared files, or even OneDrive for business, instead of all this, we can communicate in a little different way. For example, if we take the first level, the ideation level, and the scope, we can communicate it in a different way. Okay, now I'm using this site. Let's imagine that this is the DevOps team site. In the DevOps team site, and it is black for a reason, so we can distinguish between it and the other communication methods, we have this. This is the simplest SharePoint list ever. It's a list of all the features. This is the features title, and some description, and type of the features, and the prioritization. We can just prioritize it with the start. This way, the DevOps inside itself, the team inside itself, can manage all the features. Now, it's just a little bit better than an Excel file. It's not that big of an improvement, but it's already a step forward towards the managing the features in the product. The next thing we can do is this. Hopefully you can see something of the writing. Now, what is that? Who knows what is this? Yeah, it's planner. So what were we doing? We basically manage an end of the plan. Here, currently, in SharePoint, we're missing one small component that is going to be eventually happening, is to export all the items from the list of this feature to the planner directly. But this is something that is coming up. Now, what is a good thing about this planner is not we just have the list of all the features, but we can also classify them into those groups. So remember, in the list inside the DevOps side, we have feature. The feature was add new 3D display for the client, for the catalog. Now this feature is colorful, so we can say which kind of feature, which kind of improvement we are doing. Okay, the writing is not very clear, but you have different categories. So we can have design, we can have IT, we can have development, we can have security. We choose the groups that we are going to set part of. We choose the categories that are part of it. We can also assign the feature, and this person is going to have an email or a notification, those little bells on the top of the screen that are going to notify the person that he has a new feature assigned. And of course, we can comment on the feature, track the comments on the feature, and things that are related. We have the due date, start date, all the things that MS Project might be supplying to us, but much simpler, because we don't need all these details for this specific project. We can also because we are working in agile project management, we can also already right here divide it into iteration. Iteration 1, iteration 2, out of the scope, the place where no feature wants to end up, and so on and so on. So we have who is assigned to this feature to get this feature done. We have the different categories of the feature, and we have if it's in the to-do list or in some kind of different group. We can also do this to figure out where we are at the specific product. Now, this is not managing all the project and everything at all. It just manages the specific product, what was done, what was left, what was assigned to who. So you can see the status very clearly and automatically. And you can also see one day when it's going to work, the tasks on the right hand. So we will let it think about that. Maybe it will come to a better conclusions. So can we go back to the presentation, and we can say that the first part of it, the features, the management of the features and the management of the features and the scope, the ideation process is captured here. Yes, there are applications that doing it bigger, better, but for a smaller organization such as Devo, which is a company of about 20 employees, they do not need this huge application on this huge solution. They need something simpler, but they do need to share it with their customers, and they do need to understand where things are going at. So this is the first part. Now, after we've seen the feature ideation and prioritization, we have another part. Who are the stakeholders? If there were BAs in the crowd, they would probably say that this is one of the most important parts, because you need to understand who you are talking to. DevOps, when they introduced themselves in the meetup, and they were asked by the BAs, of course, who are you talking to? They described the stakeholders. So, if you have ever studied an MBA, any MBA graduates? Okay, in MBA, those would be probably the textbook stakeholders, right? The product manager for the application or for the product, the developers, the BAs, and the project manager from the customer. This is textbook. The problem is that we live in the real world. So there are a little more than those textbooks. So this is what happens versus the MBA. All of those guys are basically not even from DevOps. They are from the retail. They are from the customer. And of course, they do not always see eye to eye. And they're not always sure what was done by whom. And there are always some prioritizations that can go inside and between all those teams. So what would you suggest? How to manage them? How would you manage them?
In PM terms, you would have a stakeholder register.
Okay, stakeholder register. Okay, that's an idea. And how would you manage the communication here?
Well, there's a variety of ways to do it. I mean, I love using SharePoint just as a list, not defining columns.
Okay.
I don't think that's where you're going. So sorry.
No. I love that, because if you are going to SharePoint, then maybe there are other solutions, not just technology, but even methodologically speaking. How do you manage that? Like all those different types of stakeholders in different colors, that means they're from different parts of the organization and from different parts of the product. Somebody develops, somebody worries about security, somebody just marketing. I mean, we need to figure them out too. I think so let's divide them into groups, right? If you divide them into groups, divide and control, was invented by the Romans. You divide them into groups. So you have, first of all, the groups, the DevOps inside, and the second is the retail inside, and how you cooperate them together. We have the groups also by types of stakeholders, because not all the stakeholders need all the information. Not all the stakeholders need has to have all the information and all the access to the information, and they are also needed in different parts. If we are working now on a specific part of the catalog in improvement, we don't need everybody. We just need the people who are part of it. Also, the informed and supervised. So there are decisions that are made on a PM levels or a BA level. We don't need to involve the IT manager of the whole company just to make a specific decision. Now, things look a little bit more manageable. Design and manage, all the BAs, PM, people who are making the design solutions, maybe even marketing, getting tasks and supplying info. Dev says, okay, those are my limitations, and the developers get the specific task. They might be part of the deciding team, but they are actually the people who are going to do the job. And the supervised and informed, all the high manager and IT department management and the client management and of course sales and others, people that need to know what's going on, but they need to see the big picture. They don't need to see the nitty-gritty details. For example, features prioritizations, all the features, all the sub-features. They need to know where those things are just going. So again, now we see the tool, we see the product group in SharePoint groups, in Office groups, is something that we can create and manage there. So the features that were managed in, who wants to remind me how the features were managed? Which product did I use? Okay. So the features that were managed there are going to be shared with this specific group. Also, we can see another advantage that SharePoint, at least from my experience, and I guess from your experience as well, SharePoint is driving sometimes the governance policy and driving specific even processes inside organizations. You need to implement SharePoint, you need to add SharePoint, so suddenly there are specific processes, workflows, and ways of communication that are changing and are changing in the direction that was decided by the organization as we speak. So now they are communicating with emails, meetings, Skype meetings, the MS Project Gantt, and the Agile board for meeting. Everybody probably has in their organization those little Agile boards and the little sticky notes. Great way to communicate inside DevOps, inside the organization. How do you communicate with the client? This is why we have groups. It enables us to understand permission levels also, who sees and needs access for information. And it also enables us to add all those processes and the approval processes, show the approval process. The same way we can approve specific feature, we can approve specific document inside the group. Let's go to hopefully the demo. All right. So when I click in Office 365 on the screen, and when I go to SharePoint, this is what I see. I no longer see just SharePoint. I see SharePoint and I see the featured sites or the featured groups. So there are featured groups and there are also featured teams. I'm just showing in a glance. Product group, here we go. This is a team. This is another application that we are going to discuss a little bit about. And there is also Yammer. So we can see all of those ways of communicating inside and outside of the organization. Now, I choose groups, and later on we will discuss why I chose groups. And for the specific group, I chose this one. This is our product group. Now, the product group has, part of it is the flow that we have already seen, and this is in the plan iterations. This is the planner that is used. Also, in the group, we have 6 members. Now, anybody here who has a cell phone with the group app installed, I can add him or her into this group. And then, sorry about that, they are going to get many, many notifications. So if anybody wants, just raise a hand and I will add you to the group and you'll get all the notifications, you can approve file, and you can join to the group conversation. What is opening right now? Which application is open? Outlook. So why does Outlook open? Because it's in the conversation is in Outlook. Also, all the permission management, all the adding people. If I want to add you now to the group, and you have it installed already, you have this. I will have to add you in Outlook. Because as we've seen in the last slide before the demo, it's the same with Outlook, in OneNote, in groups, in Teams. We're managing it from the same. It's across the applications. Even the planner in Power BI, and we can see it right here. You probably recognize this one, right? Product group with the yellow big box. So the product group with the yellow big box, they have the Power BI, the dashboards that belong to it. So for example, the catalog managers with the glitzy little thing there, so they will see different dashboards than the product group, and the permissions and everything about, all the information about it is managed in Outlook and the conversation. Now the challenge is to find the conversation back. So this is the conversation. And the conversation is basically can be inside the Outlook. And for example, this is a meeting that is set up. So the meeting is going to be in the calendar. I can add notebook, which means OneNote. I can add other applications. There is here planner. I have a site already for the group app. I can have other sites. I can have other things that are managed in here. So what do we have? We planned the features. We created a conversation. So now all the conversation is basically documented in here inside the group, and we also created a place to put all the documents, all the activities, or the things that are needed to manage the group itself. Now, now why am I not doing it in Teams? That's a tricky question.
Invite people from outside?
Not exactly, not just. Yeah, if I define outside, I can, for example, define that this organization is a sub-organization of DevOps, and then I can invite them, like Slack or something. Any other reasons? Okay. So if we draw this thing, and we say that this is corporate, and this is small team, and here is instant messenger, and here is a record. Sorry for the handwriting. So, and that's an excuse. And so what we have is, if we want communication that is instant for a small team, we will probably use Teams. We will use it, we'll have some kind of a OneNote in there. We will have small files, a picture or two, and we will have instant messages. Somebody is not driving, walking the dog, not driving, and thinking about the application, thinking about a new thing to add to our catalog, a new thing to add to our feature or product. We will text it or something like this if we are working this way. If we want the next one is the Outlook, who is basically the basis for all of them, for permissions, for conversation, for storing everything. The next one is the groups. Now, the things that are in the groups are already stored as records. We already have a better way to share, like you said, including external users, because basically I can add for a public group anybody who has a Windows Live ID. And Charles demonstrated, I believe, and others how to create this Windows Live ID. Jared, sorry, in the morning. It was pretty, it was pretty easy for anybody to email. And also the groups allow us this whole view of many different apps. But this is not nothing set in stone, because if we want to use Teams for something that we would rather use groups, it's okay as well. It's going to work. You just need to figure it out as you go. As many of SharePoint's things, this is also something that we can choose which one we are using. And the last one, Yammer. When when the CEO or CFO or whoever wants to pronounce something to the whole company, to the whole corporation, and he wants it to be set in stone, set as a record, with specific permissions and also with a serial number and everything inside the organization, he would probably prefer to use Yammer. So this is why I chose to use for this specific thing product group. We have a client, we have a product that we are working with, and we want more collaboration and more permissions in this collaboration. So this is the product group. I showed the group conversation. I showed also, I always showed that it can have other features such as the sales data, the sales data. We can measure things, and we can add the Power BI here as a web part. Okay, we'll let this sit and refresh itself. One day it will. Yes. Internet is a bit slow today. Never mind. Let's go back to the slide deck until the Power BI refreshes. Okay. So why do we actually need the Power BI? I will just get it back to the slide. We've seen the ideas, we've seen how we do the ideation process, the scope. We did some of the planning, we did some of the management. We improved the communication a lot because now we have a group with all the conversations, with all the files, with all the processes inside it. What is the next thing? Is data-driven decision making. So when we are improving this catalog of all those products by DevOps, we want to know that we did the right thing, right? How we are doing it by looking at the numbers. Were sales improving? Did people add many new features or not so many new features? For example, if the customer paid for like 3 months of development and only 2 features were actually added and they were pretty minor or something in design, something here is not very right. And the customer wants to know about that, I'm sure. So we want to validate our decision, measure the success or the failure of each improvement. And we also want to measure the performance. Of course, those 2 things are going to be stored in different places. So in which places they are going to be stored, what we have so far. I showed 2 environments so far. The first environment was the DevOps team site. In the DevOps team site, they have managed all the features and the prioritization. It was also internal and not shared with the customer. Another one is the product group. So this is external group. That means it's a group that can be shared with people outside of the DevOps organization. We use the planner for scope and task, and we use the group chat to, chat. And also, we've seen that this is a SharePoint site, so I do not need to show things such as document management, versioning control, who approved what, which was shown by the flow by Charles and by Jared before that, and so on, and this all the product group. So we have another stakeholder, we have the catalog managers group. This one is closed to some of the people who are not supposed to see it, so this would be internal for the DevOps. So we can install their KPI to measure the ideas in the feature list. How would we do that? So first of all, why would we do that? Because we want to measure the performance. Yes, it's a little bit simplified because it's just how many ideas were entered in the box, but at least it gives us some kind of indication what was done. All right. So we go to another application, which is Power BI, and it was the star of the show for Scott's lecture. I hope that you guys had a chance to see it. If not, Power BI user group. Also look in Meetup, and this is a very popular user group that people are going and learning about all the features of Power BI. There are also many recorded sessions and other things, so check it out and sometimes shout brings games. So this is important. What? I won't be showing now how to create a new dashboard. I will just mention that there are several entities in there. So first of all, in the Power BI, I get to it by clicking on the Office 365 button and choosing Power BI, just like everything else. In the workspace, I will choose the product group or the catalog managers group, depends on what I want to show. So for example, the KPI, I want to show it in the product manager group, not in the product group, not just in the product managers group. Just to prove that there are several workspaces, let's see the catalog managers, you see completely different set of dashboards. Not just completely different set of dashboards, you can see also completely different set of reports. And what are reports built upon? They are built upon data sets. So this is the important part. Now, this is where the data is getting involved. There was a person that was sitting right here, and Charles asked her, what do you want to see, the data first or the applications first? So this is where we're getting the data for. KPI for aviation comes from a SharePoint list. This data set comes from Excel file. Another data set can hopefully come from Oracle one day when I figure out how to connect it. But there are many, many things that can be connected to Power BI, basically more than 120 something things can be connected and data sources can be connected, including, and this is something that we are talking a lot about in the Power BI user group, Power BI connection with API. So we can connect to Twitter, and Jared showed it before that. We can connect to Meetup. This is something I did comparing two meetups, who is going to the SharePoint user group, but also to 20 and 30 something dancing people group in the meetup. So that kind of correlation there. It was a very funny session. So Power BI can connect to everything, and this is where you connect it in that set. Then you build the specific report. So if we go to back to our product group, just a second. Going back to product group in the reports, we have API for aggregation. This is the number of ideas I have in the ideas list. The number is 5. I want there at least 7 ideas list because this is the target that we have set for this specific list. And I can, in this report, I can pin this visual inside the dashboard. So I can go back to the dashboard. And in the dashboard, I have a very, very interesting button. I can explore it, I can get related insights from Power BI, I can edit it, I can do lots of stuff, but I can do this. I can manage an alert or set an alert. And who wants to guess what it connects to and what it does? We are in Power BI.
Flow.
Okay, right, exactly. So what it does, it basically creates flow. So we have seen that we can embed the Power Up as a tile inside this dashboard. This is what Charles said. Now we see in the other direction that from Power BI we can create a flow. Why do we need this flow at all? What is the business need behind it? Okay, so that's good that I don't have anything to deliver now, so because nobody. So basically, when I want to reach out 7, I want to reach 7 ideas, not 5. I want somebody to be notified of that. And also, if by the end of the month I am not reaching, or by the end of the specific period, I'm not reaching this target, I also want to be notified of that because it's the